It's Mother's Day, and we want to wish all the givers of life and those nurturing it Happy Mother's Day. May you be reminded today of the true meaning of the role that was appointed to you. I'm Adrian Atkinson, and I'm your guide for this half hour. More when we return.
She is a vessel of life. Her arms hold the warmest embrace. In her eyes are scenes of love and correction. Her lips, the sweetest kisses. And in her words, affirmation for life. She is a gentle being, but fierce whenever she needs to be. She is a mother.
And if she's a good mother, she's all that and more. But what it means to be a mother starts with pregnancy and all that it brings. That includes the physical and mental issues they endure during pregnancy and the early days following. In this week's Get the Facts, dedicated to our moms, we explore one of those issues. Let's join in on the conversation.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the show that gives you information on what you need to know. Our special regard for our mothers is an adequate feeling for the care that they give. They are the first and the most enduring source of love and care in a person's life, teaching us values that we carry through life, being there for us even when we have become adults. On a day like today, set aside to honor them, these factors are foremost in our minds. But do we really think about what they go through for us, from the time of conception to the moment of giving birth, and even those early days following? Now let me help you. Many mothers have to deal with things like postpartum depression and anxiety, all while taking care of us. And let's not forget the physical challenges. There's gestational diabetes, mastitis, which I'm learning is breast tissue infection, postpartum thyroid problems, pelvic floor disorder, which is urine leakage. And we love them for this. We love mothers for this. But we have to admit, you guys certainly go through so much when it comes to childbearing, including the one condition that brought us here today, Diastasis Recti. Now, don't know what that is? Well, Anna K. Stoltz, a certified physiotherapist who specializes in the pelvic issues of mothers, is here to explain. Mrs. Stoltz, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's jump right into it. I have no clue. Diastasis recti. Can you help us understand what that is?
Okay. All right. So diastasis recti, or another name is diastasis recti abdominis, is that separation of our muscles. So we think about our abdominal muscles and we think about our six-pack. That's what is commonly known as.
Right.
So we have the six-pack, which is that rectus abdominis, hence the name. That's where it comes from, right? Okay. Right. So I like to have persons visualizing it. So think about a six-pack. 1, 2, 3, mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, and we have this little flat area that's right in the middle, or a linear alba, that's supposed to stretch during pregnancy.
That's a muscle?
It's just a ligament.
Okay.
It's right there.
Okay.
Right. So it stretches during pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And with that said, now, the further along you go in pregnancy, usually about week 35, it stretches to an extent. And it's natural because it's supposed to accommodate a growing abdomen. Mm-hmm. So with that said, that stretching eventually can cause further issues in life if it doesn't return to its normal position postpartum.
What would stop it from returning?
From returning, it just depends on different factors. For example, like the state of the mother before, right, and how much stretch there was. So, like for some persons, literally, they can be very small, and all of a sudden you're pregnant with a very growing belly, and it's just big.
Right.
Or even if you're not small, you just naturally start to get a lot of stretching. It means that the body is just probably stretched beyond a certain limit. And for some person, regulating all of that can take a little while to go back together. So that's where we come in. Mm-hmm.
How do you know that diastasis recti, that's happening to you?
That's happening. All right, so there are different different things that we look at. And generally what persons will say is that, boy, you know, I realize that my belly is big and I go into the gym, you know, going to the gym and there's nothing that's helping. I can't seem to lose this pooch and this little belly that's at the bottom there constantly. Or they will say, you know, I've noticed that each time I do certain thing, there's a sort of coning or dome shape. You know, that's a curve right in the belly area, and that's one of the first signs. I don't know what that means. So that's usually when they say that, I said, okay, it means that we're having the signs of diastasis recti.
Okay.
Yes, and as such, we will then encourage persons, or we'll try to test them, because if they come into me at that point, when I test or assess, then we can notice that, okay, there is indeed a separation.
All right. So far, we've been speaking about mothers, pregnancy. Is it only a mother's pregnancy sort of thing?
No, it's not. It's people think it's only for pregnant women, but it's mostly pregnant and postpartum women that go through this condition.
Right.
But I must say, women who are obese, like probably can be excessively obese, can actually get the condition. Even men. So sometimes, again, the same concept, growing that belly, that bare belly that we know it as, it means that it's the same stretching that's taking place.
Right.
Or if you have engaged into excessive straining activities, for example, heavy lifting, you put your body and your abdominal muscles under strain, and if you overexert your core muscles, then you put yourself at risk of developing that condition too.
It's a matter of expansion and strain.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I have to ask now, you mentioned earlier that it might also depend on the condition that, for example, a mother's body might have been in before the expansion. So are there certain things that make a mother, let's keep working with the mothers, more prone to diastasis recti?
Yes, there is. So it comes like, we'll call that our risk factors in terms of what will cause them to have these conditions. So let's say multiple pregnancies, right? You have a higher chance of having diastasis recti the more pregnancies that you have, right? Because it means that your body is now going through different changes.
Right, expand.
Good. And if you think about it now, if we have quicker time doing pregnancy, so you had a baby today, and within less than 12 months, we have another baby. So imagine that's very quick. It means that your body didn't get the chance to heal.
In my head,
and
it
go
was you have a baby today, have another one tomorrow, but within 12 months.
No.
Right.
Right, within 12 months. Or then, you know, the age plays a factor. Research studies persons over 35 are at risk of developing diastasis recti. I mentioned before, the smaller your body is to actually accommodate can actually put a strain. So usually those factors are things that we think about. So, and also pregnancy, the multiple, for example, having twins, triplets. So clearly that's a lot, right? So that means that the more we have inside, the greater the stretch.
Right. Okay, we're going to go to a break right now.
Okay.
We're discussing diastasis recti, and thank you for staying with us thus far. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All children deserve positive parenting. Why not pamper us? Be patient with us. Make time to teach us, and of course, play with us. Celebrate milestones with us, and don't forget to be our #1 supporter. Do all these things and practice positive parenting today.
Welcome back. We're talking with Anna K. Stultz, a physiotherapist who specializes in pelvic issues of mothers. She has been helping us understand a condition called diastasis recti. Lady Stultz, let's jump right back into it.
Okay.
So I noticed that when you were discussing the symptoms, you didn't really mention pain. But I am wondering, what impact can untreated diastasis recti have on a mother's daily life? You know, caring for a newborn.
Right.
Out and about.
Out and about. Okay, so yes, I didn't mention pain before because usually the first symptoms that mothers would notice would be those ones that I've mentioned before.
Right.
However, having untreated diastasis recti, it then leads to further conditions. We can discuss it because, all right, let's break it down a little bit.
Please.
We think about it as our abdominal muscles are a part of our core muscles. Our core muscles think about our abdominal muscles, our back muscles, our diaphragm, which is a big breathing muscle located under our ribs,
Okay.
and our pelvic floor muscles. So those four different compartments engage what we call our core muscles. So when you think about it now, if here is being affected, it means that one out of the four is not being affected, right? And if you have a system, and I like to use this analogy all the time, if you have 4 workers in an office and one is sick, it means that the other ones, have to pick up the slack.
Right.
And it is okay for a certain period of time. However, after a while, it becomes a lot of strain. It's the same concept with our core muscles. When one is off, it means that it can lead to other issues. So let's talk about those issues.
Right.
Those issues could be back pain, low back pain. It can be hip pain. It can be pelvic pain. It can be pelvic floor issues that are taking it a little bit further in the sense of incontinence, whether it's be urinary or fecal incontinence. It could be urinary.
Wait, hold on. You've got to break it up. Essentially, can't hold it in.
Okay, yes, loss of control. Sorry, so incontinence just means loss of control. It means that we're no longer able to hold or urine, and it's a very common thing, and we think it is normal because it's common, where you sneeze as a mom and you say, oh, and you believe that, oh my gosh, my grandmother went through that, but it is not normal, right? It's common, but it's not normal, right? So we can also have prolapse being loss of body control, loss of control of the organs, or Jamaican term would be body come down, right? That's what my grandmother would say. So it means that eventually these things, having that loss of instability leads to that. And if you think about as a mommy, you're busy taking care of a child, you're lifting, you're handling and a growing child. It means that the pounds are increasing. If we're not managing certain conditions or certain abdominal pressures, like breathing properly while doing these activities, positioning ourselves properly, then it just means that our body starts to say, okay, all right, I was not ready for this. And it then means that, okay, we start to having all of these issues now.
And the other core muscles doing overtime
Everything
work.
doing overtime, and everything can be a ripple effect.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. This doesn't self-correct.
Yes and no.
All right.
All right, so again, remember, the separation is a natural form. It's not to scare person. Naturally, your body is supposed to go through it because it needs to accommodate. It's just that usually by week 4 to 6, about 50% of that separation, it should go back down by 50% by right. It should close in a little bit more. And the further along it goes, they're supposed to be closing a little bit further. They just that some women just don't have that closing in happening as fast as it should.
So for those women who it's not happening as fast as it should, or maybe it doesn't happen any at all, what does physiotherapy have for them? What do they need to do?
Right. So physiotherapists are movement specialists. They're the movement experts. And again, it's not just making a program and said, okay, we're going to do these exercises, we're going to do that.
Right.
It's literally taking in the patient as a whole, because again, we have to look at how the mother is doing certain things. So it's recommended to engage a physiotherapist, and being specific, a physiotherapist who knows how to treat that condition. If we're going to take it a little bit further, a pelvic floor physiotherapist is really the best, like myself. Right. It's really the best because, again, I'm not just looking into just your abdominal muscles. We're going to take into consideration every single thing and tying all of those things together. So it's really important to get that expertise involved. We're going to look at, as I said, mentioned before, your the way how you do things, the way how your body is positioning. Find other conditions, as in, we'll not find. No, we're not going looking for conditions, but we're going to look and see to see if anything else is unstable, because you may just become so concerned about this that I'm thinking that something else might be going off, and let me just check on that.
Right.
And so that's what we do, because we're now zoning into just thinking, okay, we might be having some other issues based on the questions that we would have asked.
So in essence, it's not a one size fits all.
It's definitely not.
But the general idea is that core and pelvic floor strengthening needs to happen.
Needs to happen.
All right. Is surgery ever recommended or needed?
All right, so surgery is going to be the last thing. And even doctors would tell you that, unless they're cosmetic surgeons. But for the most part, you would try conservative management first,
Right.
which is engaging with an exercise program and sticking and being consistent with that program. Because again, it can take up to about 18 months for a full healing for some persons, by the way. All right, so we take that into consideration. For some women, they realize that they're consistent. They work hard. They do everything that they're supposed to do, and then it does not seem to be helping. And at that point, if they want to go into surgery, then nothing is wrong, because they shouldn't be feeling bad that they choose to get something that makes them feel more comfortable. Because for a lot of them, the look starts to bother them. You know,
Right, right.
for a lot of persons, they're more conscious about what it looks like too, and we have to understand. You know, if you're used to a certain flat abdomen, they may want that. Of course, for some persons, it's more than just the looks. It's really about how they're functioning, and as such, then, as again, if everything else is not working, then we do encourage the surgery at that point.
So there it
But it's really the last
option.
last resort.
But there is that. And you
Yes.
did answer a question I have in terms of how
Okay.
long we would expect
Yes.
resolution. 18 months.
Can
is
take
what you
up
said?
to 18 months.
But that's also dependent on the state of the mother's body and
Yes,
whatnot.
and their consistency and all of those things.
Right.
Yes,
And we're also underlining that it's not just mothers, even though we see it often there.
right.
Lady Stoltz, we're in the final few seconds of the interview, the toenail, so to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience directly?
Okay, so I would like to say that, you know what? I like to tell my mothers that your bodies have gone through so many changes. You literally grow a child or children for 40 weeks. It means that your body is going to go through different changes, as I said before. Be gracious with yourselves, be kind, be patient. Your body will return. Let's not give in to a snapback culture in terms of expecting the perfect body. And thus, you know, whenever there's a problem, we always seek pelvic floor physiotherapists. We're here to help you.
All right, and on that note, we have come to the end of the program. I do hope that we've all learned something from this important conversation. To all the wonderful mothers out there, we appreciate you. Happy Mother's Day. Until next time,
Mother's Day.
do take care.
Are you aware of how Jamaican adolescents use social media? What do they do online? What do they post? Do you know if they are being harassed? These are questions you should be asking yourself, because it is your duty to keep your children safe online. Parents, here's what you need to do. Be active online and offline. Help your child to set up his or her online profile. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the different social media applications that they use and set some rules. Protect our nation's children and save them from cybercriminal attacks.
Money are your problem. Car are your problem. Hey, whatever the problem is, just let it go, because stress is not a flex. A quick way to let go the stress is to find someone you can share your concerns with. And if you can't do that, then find other ways to release your stress, because stress is not a flex.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness has embarked on a journey to help our youth let go the stress, installing wellness benches in schools across Jamaica, setting them up as safe spaces for communication about mental challenges. If you can't find a seat on the bench, get a hold of this exercise to help you alleviate the stress.
First of all, I want you to think about the worst thing that offends you and upset you and you're uncertain about. Just think about it. And then, after 3, I want to transfer the stress from the brain into the ball, and it has to show on your face. 1, 2, 3.
We continue now with part 2 of our 4-part series, My Mind and Me. Today, Cheryl Garrix-Lloyd, who was a psychiatric nurse for over 10 years and is a staunch advocate for mental health, dives into what is mental illness. Watch now to learn more.
Previously on My Mind and Me.
Mental health is an umbrella term that's used a lot that encompasses mental health and well-being and mental illness, but they're actually two different concepts. So mental illness, as defined by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is a group of symptoms. It can be a syndrome that we can see. It affects persons' feelings, their moods, and how they think. And then we have the different symptoms depending on what the diagnosis is. And what really happens is that these symptoms affect somebody's ability to function in their daily lives.
Mental illnesses are more common in people than we think. And awareness helps us not to group them, but to know and treat people accordingly.
We have a manual we call the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that tells us the different types of mental illnesses. There are many. From the top of my head, I'd probably say at least 16 classifications, and under each classification we have different disorders. The most common ones I could say globally, and perhaps similarly for Jamaica, would be anxiety disorders, are one of the biggest groups. That includes anxiety itself and includes like panic attacks or panic disorder. That one has about 200 million people globally. The next common one would be depression, clinical depression or major depressive disorder. Again, we are about 180 million people globally who are diagnosed with that. So in our culture, we have a way to say, I feel depressed. That's not what it is, but clinical depression is a very common one. The one that we may know, or the two classifications we may know most commonly in Jamaica are perhaps bipolar disorders. And so we have bipolar 1 and 2, and we look at about 40 million people globally with bipolar disorders. And then schizophrenia falls under the schizophrenia spectrum classification, but it's the most common one, and we have about 20 million people in Jamaica. Our ratio for that is perhaps about 1 in 10,000 for schizophrenia, but that's probably one of the most common ones we have here. I'd say the two other common ones are perhaps eating disorders. So people may know about anorexia, and then neurodevelopmental disorders usually found in children and adolescents, which includes like autism spectrum and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Knowing what the illnesses are will help us identify early warning signs, critical for seeking help.
So one of the things would be persons may not be so very groomed anymore in terms of their clothes, in terms of their hair, in terms of bathing. One of the other things that we may notice early would be withdrawal. You know, sometimes they stop responding to their phones, or they're not necessarily going out anymore, or they're staying in their rooms, are some of the things that we may notice. The other things that some people notice, depending on the disorder, would be people start to engage in maybe what they would call risky or careless behaviors that they never normally engaged in.
Talking about mental illness in open spaces is important.
So each one teach one. What we found is that stigma is facilitated because we don't know, or by the things that we hear. It's important to have open conversations, one, because sometimes when you don't talk, you assume you're the only one. That's not true. There are a lot of us and lots of people who are struggling with different things. Two, knowledge is power is a real statement. When you know something, you're able to act on it, to act responsibly and appropriately on it, and then you're also able to debunk some of the myths. So if you hear somebody else saying something that's not true, then you're able to also share with them. And the more we talk, the more we get the information out, the more knowledgeable we become, the more we decrease the stigma that we need to get rid of so people can get help for their mental health challenges.
As someone who has worked as a psychiatric nurse for over a decade, Mrs. Garrigues-Lloyd has some thoughts about how society can better treat the issue of mental illness.
I would like people to not be afraid to get help if they realize that something is wrong. The longer you take to get help if you're developing a mental illness, the worse the outcome is. I would like for us to be willing to help persons who have mental illnesses the same way we would if somebody faints on the road and we jump to their assistance. If they don't have their medications, are we willing to help them to purchase it? Are we willing to ensure they have eaten something to take the medication? Are we willing to take them in if they do need to get some help? I would like us to not use mental illness diagnosis as adjectives. So don't be making a joke about it and say the person's schizophrenic or they're bipolar. Those are real diagnoses and words have power. And the person who's diagnosed does not think it's funny. There are mental health clinics in all our parishes. We have a suicide line and a mental health line at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And they also have an email address. We have Family Life Ministries that offers counseling. We have Rise Life, and they offer specific help for suicide and substance abuse. We have the women's centers who have opened places for women who are being abused. And we have UNICEF has a WhatsApp number that helps adolescents up to young adults. And the last thing that we've had, somebody in Jamaica has created an app called Let's Talk About It. Get help. If you think you need help, if you know somebody who needs help, get the help. The longer you stay away from getting treatment for a mental illness, it's the worse your prognosis is. The sooner you get help, the chances are that your recovery will be better and you'll be able to function at your best.
Next on My Mind and Me.
I have a phrase, there's no good health without good mental health. So our minds are what we use to solve problems, and this is where we are looking at. So if your mind isn't well, then physically you're also not going to be well. And sometimes we have mental challenges that manifest physically. So it's just as important when we look at overall health to make sure we include mental health.
Social media is fun,
but it can also be unsafe.
To ensure our safety, we need to be smart. That's right. The first thing to know is that being on social media carries certain risks. So, being a smarty pants on these platforms will work in your favor.
Here are a few tips to keep in mind. Be careful about what you share. Know your audience by limiting who can see your posts. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Meeting people online can be exciting, but always stay cautious. Beware of catfishing.
To learn more about how to stay safe online, visit the Office of the Children's Advocate at www.welcome.oca.gov.jm.
Teachers, parents, and children alike,
stay smart, stay safe.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's show. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website, gis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Matron Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.